Tonight, we're very fortunate to have with us Librarians Sharon Teng and Goh Lee Kim, who will share how tomorrow's world will be impacted by early childhood education and innovation. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Sharon and Lee Kim.
A very good evening to all of you. Thank you for coming today on a wet and a rainy evening. This evening's presentation will have two parts. The first half is on early childhood education, and my colleague Lee Kim over there, she will deliver the second half of the presentation on innovation trends around the world and how they are impacting businesses today. We want to highlight these two focus areas because we recognize the importance of early childhood education and the growing emphasis on innovation as we build our future economy. These are the areas I will cover in my presentation. I will share briefly on the early childhood education collection at the National Library, trace the development of early childhood education in Singapore, highlight our resource guide on seminal books in the early childhood education collection, and share on global trends and landscapes. Now, a great deal of research has been done which demonstrate the importance of early childhood education. Professor James Heckman, Professor of Economics at the University of Chicago, has done extensive research in the economics of human development. From his research, he found that investment into quality early childhood education offers a typical annual return of 7 to 10%. The benefits for the individual are increased lifetime earnings, but the benefits to society are much greater, namely reduced cost of education, increased labor productivity, lower welfare payments, and a reduction in crime. To further illustrate Professor Heckman's findings, I would like to mention a famous case study called the Perry Preschool Project, which is frequently cited in research on the benefits of early childhood education. From 1962 to 1967, 123 African American children aged 3 to 4 years of age from poor families were randomly divided into two groups. One group entered a high-quality preschool program, while the second group received no preschool education. 38 years later, 97% of the study participants were interviewed. The study found that adults at age 40 who had gone through the preschool program had higher earnings, committed fewer crimes, were more likely to hold a job, and were more likely to have graduated from high school than those who did not have a preschool education. The Early Childhood Education collection is part of the Social Sciences and Humanities collection at the National Library. The collection covers many topics such as early childhood literacy, child development, inclusive education, and training of early childhood educators. We have over 1,000 titles in this collection at level 8 of the National Library. The history of preschool education in Singapore must be considered, along with the history and development of the childcare sector in Singapore, which in turn has been shaped by changing welfare, economic, social, population, and education policies over the years. Children's creches were started by the Child Welfare Society to address the issue of high infant mortality rate during the 1920s and 1930s. The first Child Welfare Centre creche, or day nursery, was set up at Victoria Street in the 1930s, and the second one was established at New Market Street. They serve dual functions: as a consultative centre, where advice would be given to mothers on the care of children, and secondly, as a nursery, where mothers could leave their infants while they go out to work. In 1939, it cost 5 cents per day for babies to be looked after at these nurseries. For meals, children were fed on carefully well-balanced diets consisting of bread, milk, fruit, and unpolished rice. Children were also taught how to read and write. Shortly after the war in 1949, the Ministry of Social Affairs took over the running of the two nurseries at Victoria Street and New Market Street from the now defunct Child Welfare Society. Charges were highly subsidized at 10 cents per day to make it affordable for working mothers to place their children here. A nurse was attached to each nursery and a doctor made weekly visits. The children also received free dental treatment. On the whole, nurseries were well run. They were generally clean, had excellent health care, and well-balanced, nutritious food. Fees during the 1950s and 1960s were 30 cents a day. It benefited children of blue-collar workers who were the target group served. As Singapore underwent industrialization in the late 1960s and 1970s, more workers were required in factories, and with the full employment of men, there was an urgent need to get more women into the labour force. The primary aim of setting up childcare centres, especially at workplaces, was to encourage more female participation in the manufacturing industries and professional sectors. NTUC set up their own childcare branch in 1976. By 1979, the Ministry of Social Affairs had transferred its entire childcare services to NTUC as the government found it was too expensive to sustain these childcare services. So with this transfer, the government relinquished its role as a direct childcare services provider and assumed the role of regulator and policymaker. In the 1980s, Singapore's total fertility rate fell to below 2.1, which was below the population replacement level. To encourage marriage couples to have more children, the government introduced the Have 3 or More If You Can Afford It policy in 1987 and also introduced incentives such as providing affordable and convenient childcare. The government also provided financial incentives to voluntary and non-profit organizations to set up childcare centers and encouraged the private sector to set up childcare facilities. Preschool education began gaining attention in the media during the late 1990s. The major issue was that different preschools charge different rates and have different programs, resulting in children being overprepared, underprepared, or wrongly prepared for primary 1. At the time, then Senior Minister of State for Education, Dr. Aileen Wong, was also concerned about the overemphasis on the academic aspect of preschool education. Shortly after, MOE and the Ministry of Community Development, Youth and Sports began to introduce various initiatives to improve the quality of early childhood education. In 2000, the desired outcomes of preschool education was introduced by MOE to state what was expected of children when they enter primary 1. When the Compulsory Education Act was passed in 2003, parents saw preschool education as a way to lay a foundation for their child's future learning and help their child to get a head start to primary school. This slide shows the kindergarten curriculum framework, which was launched in 2011 by MOE to guide the teaching and learning in preschools. The framework details MOE's beliefs about how children learn and develop and what constitutes quality preschool education. The Early Years Development Framework was published by the Ministry of Community Development, Youth and Sports in 2011 to complement the kindergarten framework. Over the last 2 decades, enrollment in Singapore preschools has been over 90%. The range of quality and types of curricular approaches across preschools vary widely. There are many curriculum models and approaches, and I've listed just 7 here, which are still used by preschools all over the world today. In Singapore, besides childcare centres and kindergartens, there have also been an increase in the number of private enrichment centres, which offer short programs in, for example, speech, drama, phonics, music and dance. There are even centres that prepare preschoolers for the primary school curriculum. Apart from the curriculum, there was a move towards raising the level of professionalism in the preschool sector in Singapore. Studies have shown that the educational level of preschool staff impacts the quality of interaction between staff and children. Prior to 2000, the majority of preschool teachers in Singapore were less academically qualified women and housewives. In the past, the early childhood education sector was traditionally viewed as simple child-minding work. This was a similar perception held worldwide. Prior to 1970s, professional education for preschool teachers was minimal and largely ad hoc. In the late 1990s, a review of preschool education led to MOE's decision to improve the quality of preschool education. In 1999, Ngee Ann Polytechnic became the first local institution to offer a 3-year full-time diploma in early childhood care and education. From 1st January 2009, all new preschool teachers need to have 5 GCE O-levels and a diploma in preschool education teaching to be a kindergarten or childcare teacher. In November 2013, then Minister of Social and Family Development Chan Chun Sing announced the Continuing Professional Development Master Plan to raise the quality of early childhood professionals. And in September 2014, the Ministry of Social and Family Development announced 3 initiatives to develop and recognize early childhood professionals. Firstly, by developing structured career pathways. Secondly, providing more upskilling opportunities. And lastly, recognizing and tapping on the experience of exemplary leaders in the industry. At the moment, the government has not made it a requirement for preschool teachers in Singapore to have a degree. In Singapore, compulsory school age starts at 7 years old, so preschool education is meant for children who are 6 years and below. Preschool educational institutions in Singapore are classified as 2 types: childcare centres and kindergartens. Both types of preschools are provided by either commercial operators or social and community organizations. Set up on 1st April 2013, the Early Childhood Development Agency, or ECDA, serves as the regulatory authority for the early childhood sector in Singapore. Before this agency was formed, all kindergartens were registered with MOE, and all childcare centres were licensed by MCYS. Both have now come under the oversight of ECDA since April 2013. On 28 February 2017, a new Early Childhood Development Centres Bill was passed in Parliament. This ensures that all childcare centres and kindergartens are licensed under the same regulatory framework to ensure more consistent and higher quality standards across the preschool sector. This slide gives some statistics to show how the number of childcare centres have mushroomed over the decades. As parents work longer hours and there are more dual career married couples, there has been a significant increase in the demand for childcare services. In 1973, we had 12 childcare centres. By 2017, the number had grown to 1,419 childcare centres. As of 2016, there are about 500 kindergartens in Singapore. Over the last couple of years, the government has significantly boosted the number of preschool places and introduced various measures to enhance the availability, accessibility, and quality of early childhood education. In terms of budget, the government has allocated funds for preschools to keep fees affordable, given out family subsidies, awarded innovation grants to kindergartens, and awarded bursaries to preschool teachers for professional development. The government has set up more childcare centres in high-demand areas and aims to ramp up the number of childcare places by another 40,000 by 2023. From 2013 to 2016, the government invested 30 million on manpower efforts. It aims to attract 4,000 more early childhood educators by 2020. A new National Institute of Early Childhood Development will also be set up to train preschool teachers. Now, in line with the government's emphasis on the early childhood education industry in Singapore, we decided to create a resource list of seminal titles in the early childhood education collection here at the National Library. The research involved environmental scanning, and we also sought inputs from the Early Childhood Development Agency in Singapore. Our final shortlist came up to 167 titles. This resource guide was completed in August last year and published on NLB's Resource Guide platform, which is accessible via the internet. Each of you would have received a copy of the resource guide at the registration table. Here are some books from the resource guide. And another 4 books featured in the resource guide. If you're interested, you can take a closer look at these books, which are on display at the front. Now that we have covered an overview of the early childhood education landscape in Singapore, let's turn our attention to overseas trends. The earliest known preschool in the world was started in 1767 in France by a pastor. Then in 1837, Friedrich Froebel created the concept of a kindergarten in Germany with the premise that children should be taken care of and nourished like plants in a garden. For Western countries, many young women joined the workforce after the Industrial Revolution. This created a need for child-minding services. The 19th century saw the emergence of the first early childhood education centers in many Western countries, as well as China and India. Initially, these services were provided by charitable organizations, but with time, governments all over the world have taken more responsibility in providing publicly funded preschool education. Progress was slow until the 1960s, when female participation in the workforce climbed sharply in many countries, along with more extensive child development policies. After the 1990s, many countries around the world began to recognize the importance of early childhood education and began to expand these services within their countries. Along with the economic shift towards knowledge-based activities, there was also a growing awareness about child development and the need to prepare them for starting primary school. The Economist Intelligence Unit produced a report in 2012 which benchmarked and ranked preschool environments in 45 countries. Although this report was published 6 years ago, it is still frequently cited today as a valuable study and cross-comparison of the global preschool environment. Findings from the report show that Nordic countries perform best at preschool, and Western European countries dominate the rankings. Finland, Sweden, and Norway top the index, thanks to sustained long-term investments and prioritization of early childhood development. The top-performing Asian country is South Korea, followed by Hong Kong and Japan. Now, an interesting finding from the report shows that many high-income countries rank poorly. Australia, Canada, Singapore, and the US, for example, are all listed in the lower half of the index despite having high average per capita incomes. This is because quality preschool programs are not available or affordable to everyone in society, while minimum quality standards vary widely. The availability of preschool education refers to the legal right for children to get at least 1 year of preschool. Belgium is ranked number 1 under this criteria. Belgium children can attend free preschool from 2.5 years of age. Few countries prioritize spending towards preschools. Majority of the education funding goes towards tertiary, secondary, and primary levels, with the least going to preschools. Countries also have to choose between providing more basic services to the masses versus limiting access to higher quality services. To make early childhood education more affordable, subsidies can be given to families or to operators, and in practice, countries usually practice both. American preschools rank as the most expensive in the world. France and UK provide free universal preschool from the age of 3 to all children. The EIU report has identified 3 initiatives to improve early childhood education quality. First initiative is teacher quality and training. In early childhood education, a well-trained workforce is the most important determinant of quality. Finland requires preschool teachers to have a bachelor's degree. Other governments provide scholarships or graduation bonuses or pay a higher salary to those who achieve professional qualification. Quality is also affected by the ratio of children to teachers. The second initiative is setting out curriculum guidelines and standards. In the Netherlands, there's a government policy that regulates the quality of education and care in preschools. The third initiative is ensuring parental engagement. In Belgium, there's a statutory responsibility for preschools to work with parents and to offer parenting programs and parenting support. Let's take a closer look at the early childhood landscape in 6 countries. Now, according to the EIU study, Finland's preschool environment serves as a model for the rest of the world. In 2016, Finland government invested 1.3% of its total GDP to the early childhood education sector. In August 2015, the government implemented compulsory free preschool for children once they reach 6 years of age. Preschool fees are subsidized by the state and are kept at a maximum of €290 a month. And as mentioned earlier, all early childhood education teachers need to have a degree. In Sweden, from the age of 3, children can attend free preschool for 15 hours a week, and fees are kept for full-day childcare. About 54% of preschool teachers have professional qualifications. For UK, in 1989, the government introduced free preschool education for all 3- and 4-year-olds. This was later extended to 2-year-olds. In 2008, the Early Years Foundation Stage Framework was published. This sets the standards for learning, development, and care young children should experience when they attend a childcare center. In 2012, this framework was revised, and more emphasis was placed on preparing children for primary school. Next, let's take a look at countries in the Asia-Pacific. In New Zealand, the government adopts a mostly hands-off approach to the supply and management of early childcare services. Public expenditure on early childhood education increased by 190% between 2002 to 2012. In terms of professional qualifications, 95% of kindergarten teachers and 77.5% of childcare centre staff have either a diploma or a degree in early childhood education. In New Zealand, children receive free education from their 5th birthday. In South Korea, childcare emerged as a key policy agenda over the last 10 years. Government spending on early childcare education increased by 10% between 2004 and 2014. Since 2013, free childcare is provided for all children under 5. In 2012, the government began giving parents who send their children to childcare centres a monthly allowance ranging from $400 to $750 US per month. Those who raise their children at home receive home care allowances ranging from $100 to $200 US per month. Soon after the return of Hong Kong to China in 1997, the Hong Kong government began to play a more active role in enhancing the quality of early childhood education. Currently, the early childhood education market in Hong Kong is totally privatized, and Hong Kong is exploring the provision of free early childhood education. In 2007, the pre-primary education voucher scheme was launched. In 2015, eligible kindergartens could receive a voucher of US $2,500 per child per annum as full or partial subsidy for tuition fee. The teacher-child ratio in kindergartens is fairly low, 1 teacher to 9 children. As of 2015, 98.5% of teachers either have or are pursuing a certificate in early childhood education. To sum up, the various country case studies and the EIU report show that many countries, including Singapore, believe in providing a quality early childhood education system which is fair, inclusive, and accessible to all children. The governments of different countries have succeeded in varying degrees in achieving the goals of accessibility, affordability, and quality. To achieve this, the governments have used various means, such as public funds, legislation, revamping preschool curriculums, raising the professionalism of preschool teachers, building more preschools, and giving out subsidies to parents and operators to make preschool education affordable. Several countries have even implemented a universal preschool legislation to make preschool available for free to every child under the age of 6. But this raises the challenge of financial sustainability in the long run, as well as ensuring that quality is not compromised by having to hire unqualified teachers to make up the numbers. I would like to end off my sharing with a quote from the CEO of the National Association for the Education of Young Children in the US. She says, "There's an explosion of activity in the first 5 years of life, more profound than any future years. If we can capitalize on that and maximize the support and learning opportunities, then we really stand a good chance of setting young children on a trajectory of success." I believe that whether you are here today as a parent, a grandparent, someone who is interested in this topic, or someone who is in the early childhood education profession, we can all agree that experiences in a child's early life affects his or her development. This means we need to start nurturing our children as early as possible, at the stage when their brain neurons are growing most rapidly and when their brains are at their most plastic. This is how we can lay the foundation for children's lifelong development and how we can equip our next generation to be future ready and to thrive in an increasingly volatile world economy. With that, we've come to the end of the first half of today's presentation. My colleague Lee Kim will now continue the second half of the presentation on innovation trends. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Good evening, everyone. My part of the sharing today will focus on the topic of innovation. In particular, I'll be sharing with you some of the trends in innovation through our collections at the National Library. Okay, besides the trends, today I'm also looking at 2 other areas: what innovation is about and how innovation has changed businesses and the world. The relevant books on innovation can be found at level 7 and level 8 of the National Library across the business, science and technology, and social sciences collection. So the books that we have placed here are not the full collection. Do come to the library to visit us if you want to know more. Okay, some of you may ask, why innovation? Okay, specifically, I chose to talk about the topic of innovation because of its importance to Singapore and to the world today. On the global front, innovation has been emphasized by international communities and organizations, such as the World Economic Forum, as a key driver of growth and success. And in the past year, innovation has also been mentioned several times as the focus of our local initiatives. Okay, for example, this year, Singapore takes the ASEAN chairmanship, and our theme for ASEAN this year is to be resilient and innovative. Okay, and last year, in 2017, Singapore also launched the Global Innovation Alliance to promote innovation and entrepreneurship. 2018 also happens to be the France Singapore Year of Innovation. So you have seen 3 events so far that focuses on innovation in Singapore. There's even a global innovation index where countries are ranked every year on the level of innovation in the world. And Singapore, for the 2017 index, which is the most current one, Singapore has ranked 1st in Asia and 7th in the world. So not Japan, not Korea, but Singapore. Okay, so from this, you can see that innovation is an important focus in Singapore, especially this year. Okay, now, many people define innovation in many different ways. So for today's presentation, I'll be defining innovation as a new idea which creates value, meaning that it's not just a new idea, but it must be of value to people. Right, some people may wonder, where do innovative ideas come from? Okay, based on this book, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, there are 2 main sources of innovation, knowledge push and need pull. Knowledge push is actually innovation arising from the research and development efforts of organizations and companies, which can include universities, research organizations, or private companies. For example, the very fact that we all own a smartphone today is because Apple started to research and develop into smartphones. Okay? On the other hand, need pull, innovation from need pull arises from the needs and demands of the users. So for example, Facebook, which is currently in the news a lot today, Facebook was originally invented because the inventors wanted to use it as a mode of communication within their school. It was never meant for mass market until it got very popular. There are 7 key patterns behind innovation based on this book written by Stephen Johnson titled Where Good Ideas Come From. Okay, these 7 patterns have characterized innovations which have occurred throughout time. So what happened is this author looked through a series of innovations that have happened throughout time, and he picked up these 7 key patterns of innovation. Okay, due to the lack of time, I will not explain what all 7 patterns are, because I don't think you all want to listen to me talk about 7 patterns. So I will be talking about 2 which resonated with me. Okay, firstly, innovation doesn't happen instantaneously, as time is needed to develop and cultivate ideas. Do you all know that the internet was not invented overnight? It took decades and decades of research and evolution before the internet became what it was today. It was originally a private military system by the US government. Okay, secondly, innovation can result from errors and accidents. Okay, for example, the very fact that we have antibiotics to eat today is because this scientist, Alexander Fleming, he forgot to keep his bacteria culture. He left it by an open window, and it got contaminated by a mold. From there, he discovered penicillin, and that's why we have antibiotics to eat today. Okay, if you're interested to find out more about these 7 patterns, do look out for this book, which is already displayed at the book display over there. Okay, in my next few slides, I'm going to show you some examples of how innovation has brought about changes to businesses and to the whole world. Okay, I've selected these 3 examples because it has shown different ways of how people have approached innovation. Okay, and these 3 examples also show the impacts of innovation, be it positive or negative. Okay, now I think almost everyone here owns a smartphone, right? It can be an iPhone from the USA, it can be a Samsung Galaxy from Korea, it can be Huawei from China. Okay, but Today, we are able to own products from all around the world across the sea because of the invention of this little box known as the shipping container. Because actually, till the early 1960s, shipping was very expensive. Okay, because people, when they wanted to ship their goods, they put their goods into containers of different sizes. Some people put their goods into crates. Some people put their goods into sacks. Some people could put into barrels. And so manpower was needed to move this up onto the ship and stack them nicely before the ship can move off. Okay, so shipping was a very expensive endeavor. But in 1953, this very enterprising gentleman named Malcolm McLean, he came up with the idea of a shipping container. He just wanted to save money for himself because he was in transport, so he wanted to save money for himself, and he invented the shipping container. And other companies saw this method and thought, good way, because save money, it's more efficient. They don't have to rely on manpower. So they all started to adopt this system. And soon, it became the standard industry operating procedure. And as a result, shipping became cheaper, and it made it possible to import goods from other regions of the world. Okay, but on the other hand, because of this, the invention also disrupted the shipping industry because they no longer rely on manpower to move goods. Instead, they use machinery like cranes to move goods now. Okay, if you are interested to know more about the history of shipping container, look out for this book, The Box. So from this example, we can see that innovation can be revolutionary and it can completely change the way we do things. And it can also have a very huge impact on the economy. Okay, the next book I want to talk about is this, Google, The End of the World as We Know It. So the internet has become a part of our daily life because almost everything we do is very reliant on it. However, when the internet first came about, it had brought about a technological revolution which changed the way people have been doing things for many years. And many companies were not prepared to face this disruption to their business. While some companies, they went on to change and modify themselves so that they can fit the changing landscape, others, they refused to change and they try to protect the old business models. For example, how many of you still remember Napster, the music sharing website? Nobody? It's okay, I used to download music, oops. Okay, now, when music sharing websites such as Napster appeared, and it completely disrupted the music industry because people started not buying CDs, they started to download music for free. Okay, the record companies tried to protect themselves and protect their CD sales by suing the websites and suing the users. However, in the end, not only did people stop buying CDs, they also, the companies also lost the support of the users because they actually went after the users with million-dollar lawsuits. Okay, so this is one example of how companies have adapted or not adapted to disruption as they are confronted by technological innovation. To find out more details, please look out for this book. Okay, from this example, we can see that innovation can also bring about disruption. And when faced with disruption, there are some companies that choose to change and adapt themselves, but some companies, they choose to not change, and they try to hold on to their business models. Okay, one company which has adapted very well to disruption to its core business was Fujifilm. If you are old enough to know film photography, you will remember that Fujifilm and Kodak were two of the main players in the film photography business in the past. However, when digital cameras were invented, okay, both companies were rapidly losing their core business because people don't buy film anymore, they buy digital cameras. So as a result, Fujifilm decided that it had to change and adapt. They had two choices. They could also go and sell digital cameras, or they can go into another business. In the end, they decided, since there are so many people selling digital cameras, why don't we look at what else we can do? Okay, they decided to innovate using their existing assets and resources. And today, Fujifilm is still surviving while Kodak is already bankrupt. Okay, what did Fujifilm do? It was already in the business of making X-ray film, so it decided to just develop the whole line and also make X-ray machines. But what else did it also do? It also sold cosmetics. If you all have gone to Japan before, if you've been to Japan before, you have seen this brand. Okay, then some of you will ask, why is Fujifilm selling cosmetics? Okay, this is because Fujifilm has had years and years of extensive research on collagen, which is the main component to have supple, elastic skin. So why would Fujifilm need research on collagen? Because the main ingredient in photographic film was gelatin, and gelatin you can obtain gelatin from collagen. So that's why they have a lot of research in collagen and gelatin. And so, when they decided to go into a new business, they thought, why don't we just convert this research into makeup for people to keep their skin smooth and wrinkle-free? Okay, so yes, Esther Lift is by Fujifilm. Okay, from this, we learned that companies and organizations do not always have to think of completely new products. They can also be innovative ways of using what they currently have. Okay, so far I've already covered innovation and some examples of how it has changed businesses and the world. Next, I'm going to share with you some insights on trends surrounding innovation. These trends may not only about innovation itself, but it may also be related to how innovation is going to change the world. Okay, the first trend I want to share is technological innovation. Okay, according to the author of this book titled Economics for the Common Good, and this author is the recipient of the 2014 Nobel Prize in Economic Science. Okay, the world is going to continue to see technological innovation. We have been seeing a lot in recent years. We are going to see more. Okay, and he believes that in this century, this is where our economy will see a wide range of technological change and innovation. So not only many, but many different types. In fact, technological innovation is going to be a key factor in how the economy and society will turn out. So if you're interested to read more about this author's insights, do look out for this book. Okay, the second trend I want to share is the fourth industrial revolution. So according to the author, who is the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, okay, we are no longer in the third industrial revolution, but we are actually in the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. And this fourth industrial revolution was actually brought on by all the technological innovations that we have seen in these past few years, such as the Internet of Things, robotics, autonomous technology, 3D printing, blockchain, you know, all the big bombastic technology that's coming out these few years. And they have already changed or are going to change companies and countries in the world. Okay, so this author is of the view that in terms of the economy, the fourth industrial revolution can potentially lead to the growth of the world economy and alleviate global challenges. What kind of challenges? Is such as aging population and its impact on the workforce. Okay, and in terms of business, he feels that companies must keep innovating in order to survive and to prosper in the fourth industrial revolution. Besides economy and business, the author also mentions how technological innovations and the fourth industrial revolution is going to impact society and the global workforce. So do look out for the book if you're interested. Okay, the third trend I want to cover is Industry 4.0, or known as the Industrial Internet of Things. Industry 4.0 refers specifically to the future of manufacturing and production. Okay, so it explains how recent technological innovations have made it possible for industries to improve their efficiency and productivity. It also explains how companies can now use technology to understand user needs and what customers really want. Sounds a bit complicated. Let me give you an example. Okay, for example, Grab. In the news recently again. Okay, instead of selling cars, Grab sells the service of getting people from point A to point B, from one point to the next point, their destination. Because this is what people really want. They don't really want to buy a car. They actually want to get to their destinations. So with Industry 4.0, okay, Grab can now collect data and find out where there are more users in need of cars, in need of transport. And they can send more cars to these places to pick up more people. So it actually increases the efficiency of their business. So this is how Industry 4.0 can also impact everyone. Okay, Industry 4.0 is also quite important in Singapore because Singapore has launched a local initiative headed by A-Star with 13 companies that are interested in Industry 4.0 on board. This includes Rolls-Royce, HP, Singtel, StarHub, etc., etc. So it's a big initiative. Okay, another initiative I want to cover, which companies are also embracing recently, is open innovation. Okay, open innovation is turning to external sources for innovations and ideas instead of just relying on your internal staff. Okay, more and more organizations are looking to it because sometimes people outside of your organization just has more knowledge, more expertise than what your internal staff knows. Okay, in the Global Innovation Index 2016, which is this book, there's an article written by the A-Star chairman on Singapore's innovation journey. And in the article, in the future of Singapore's innovation, he mentioned that open innovation is a trend that Singapore will be leveraging on in the future. So this will be something to look out for in Singapore in the future. Okay, here are two more books that feature open innovation if you are interested to find out more. Managing Open Innovation in SMEs and New Frontiers in Open Innovation. Okay, the fifth trend I'm going to cover is how businesses will be reshaped by innovation in the future. So we have already seen so far that innovation is important in business because it's seen as a key for organizations to survive and to thrive. Okay, in this book, The Business of Innovation, the author examines innovation in business and states 3 features which innovative organizations should have. So he feels that organizations should have adaptability and agility, so they must be flexible and change with the times. And innovative organizations should also have ambidexterity, which is to manage both new innovative businesses and their existing operations well. And naturally, innovation has resulted in disruption in various industries. And this has led to a new type of economy, which is known as the sharing economy. Okay? In the book, Radical Business Model Transformation, the author mentions that to have a competitive edge, organizations should not only adapt, but they should radically transform themselves. Or else they may risk losing out and becoming irrelevant. This is a very interesting book, so do take a look if you're interested. Okay, lastly, the business world is going to be reshaped by the rapid evolution of digital technology. So, therefore, no look at the future of business will be complete without looking at the technological innovations that are going to impact businesses. These 2 titles, Business Trends in the Digital Era and the Future of Digital Business Innovation, has listed some of these innovations. I've already extracted out some and placed this on the slide. These include cloud computing, big data, digital finance, mobile internet. However, the books cover more than these. So if you are interested to find out what are some of these other innovations, do look out for these 2 books. Okay, through this sharing, I've covered the importance of innovation and look at some of the trends which will impact the world. I'd like to end off this session with 2 quotes from these 2 individuals to illustrate the importance of innovation. From Mr. Steve Leonard, the founding CEO of SG Innovate, he has a philosophy that when it comes to innovation, there is no such thing as status quo. You either improve or you decline. And sitting in the comfort zone for too long will prove costly. Mr. Ren Zhengfei, who is the founder of Huawei, has said that in the past, people thought that innovations were taking a risk. Now, if you don't innovate, you are taking a big risk. Okay, we have come to the end of our presentation. Through the first part of our sharing, we have shown you the importance of early childhood education and how holistic education is critical to the building of our next generation. In the second part, we have covered the growing emphasis of innovation as a key contributor of growth and insights on how innovation will impact the world. Together, these two areas contribute significantly to the building of our society for tomorrow. The books that we have featured in our sharing are displayed at the front of the room here. Feel free to take a closer look at them if you would like.